A few decades ago, Saudi Arabia was a kingdom built on one thing: oil. Oil paid for the roads, oil paid for the cities, oil paid for the government, and oil transformed a vast desert into one of the richest countries on earth. But today, something strange is happening. Saudi Arabia is spending money at a pace that would make even the world's biggest economies nervous. Hundreds of billions on futuristic cities, hundreds of billions on tourism projects, hundreds of billions on artificial intelligence, sports, entertainment, technology, and infrastructure. Some estimates suggest the total bill could eventually run into the trillions of dollars. The question is, why? Why would a country sitting on one of the largest oil reserves in the world spend such enormous amounts of money trying to reinvent itself? Because Saudi Arabia may be facing a problem that nobody can drill their way out of. And the solution could become one of the biggest economic experiments in modern history. To understand what's happening, we need to go back to the beginning. For decades, Saudi Arabia had one of the simplest business models on earth. Pump oil, sell oil, get rich. The country possesses roughly 17% of the world's proven petroleum reserves. When oil prices were high, money flowed into the kingdom at an incredible rate. Entire cities emerged from the desert. Living standards improved dramatically. The government became one of the most powerful economic players in the Middle East. It looked like a perfect system, until people started asking an uncomfortable question. What happens if the world needs less oil? At first, that question sounded ridiculous. The global economy ran on oil. Cars needed it, factories needed it, airlines needed it, countries needed it. But then things started changing. Electric vehicles appeared, renewable energy expanded. Governments started talking about reducing carbon emissions. Technology improved, and suddenly, the future didn't look quite as certain. Saudi leaders realized something important. The problem wasn't that oil was disappearing tomorrow. The problem was that dependence on oil made the country's future unpredictable. Imagine running a household where nearly all your income comes from a single customer. That customer might pay you very well today, but what happens if they pay less tomorrow? That's essentially the position Saudi Arabia found itself in, and that's where Vision 2030 was born. Vision 2030 is Saudi Arabia's massive plan to diversify its economy. The goal is simple: make money from things that aren't oil. Simple in theory, extraordinarily difficult in practice, because building entirely new industries is expensive. Very expensive. Saudi Arabia isn't trying to create one new industry, it's trying to create dozens at the same time: tourism, technology, artificial intelligence, logistics, entertainment, sports, financial services, manufacturing, infrastructure. And that's where the spending begins. Perhaps the most famous example is NEOM, a futuristic megacity being built in the desert, a project so ambitious that it almost sounds like science fiction. One section, known as The Line, is designed as a massive linear city stretching for miles. No traditional streets, no conventional layout, just a giant futuristic corridor running through the desert. Supporters call it revolutionary. Critics call it unrealistic. Either way, it costs an extraordinary amount of money. But NEOM is only one piece of the puzzle. Saudi Arabia is also investing heavily in tourism. For years, much of the country's economy revolved around energy. Now it wants millions of international visitors. Luxury resorts are being built. Historical sites are being developed. Entire destinations are emerging where there was once little more than sand. Then there's sports. And this is where things get particularly interesting. Saudi Arabia has spent billions attracting some of the world's biggest athletes in sporting events: football, golf, boxing, Formula One. The logic isn't really about sports. It's about attention. Every major sporting event becomes a global advertisement for the country. It's branding on a scale rarely seen before. And then there's artificial intelligence. Because Saudi Arabia isn't just trying to diversify, it's trying to position itself for the next economic era. The kingdom understands that future wealth may come from data centers, chips, software, and AI infrastructure as much as oil wells. So billions are flowing into technology investments, data infrastructure, partnerships, research, and future industries. But here's where things become complicated, because spending money is easy. Creating sustainable economic growth is hard. Very hard. History is full of countries that spent enormous amounts chasing ambitious visions. Some succeeded, many didn't. The uncomfortable math starts appearing when you look at the scale of the challenge. Oil revenues still fund a huge portion of government income. Many of these projects require years, sometimes decades, before producing meaningful returns. Meanwhile, the bills arrive immediately. Construction costs, infrastructure costs, operating costs, financing costs, everything costs money, and lots of it. This creates a strange paradox. Saudi Arabia is trying to reduce its dependence on oil, but much of the money funding that transition still comes from oil. It's a bit like trying to build a lifeboat while you're still sailing on the ship you're hoping to leave behind. And then there's another challenge: demand. Building a futuristic city is one thing. Convincing millions of people and businesses to move there is another. Creating luxury resorts is one thing. Making them globally competitive is another. Building technology ecosystems is one thing. Competing against Silicon Valley, Shenzhen, and other established hubs is another. The vision is ambitious. The execution is incredibly difficult. Yet dismissing the strategy would be a mistake, because Saudi Arabia has something most countries don't: capital. A lot of capital. Its sovereign wealth funds control hundreds of billions of dollars. That gives the kingdom time, flexibility, and the ability to make long-term bets that many governments simply cannot afford. In many ways, Saudi Arabia is attempting something larger than economic diversification. It's trying to redesign its place in the global economy. For decades, the country was primarily known for exporting energy. Now it wants to export influence, technology, tourism, investment, innovation. The stakes are enormous. If it works, Saudi Arabia could become one of the most influential economic powers of the 21st century. If it fails, the world may look back on this period as one of the most expensive transformation attempts ever undertaken. And that's what makes this story so fascinating. Because this isn't really a story about oil, or skyscrapers, or mega projects. It's a story about what happens when a nation realizes the future may not look like its past. Saudi Arabia is spending trillions because it believes standing still could be even more expensive. Whether that gamble becomes a masterstroke or a cautionary tale remains one of the biggest unanswered financial questions in the world today. And perhaps the most interesting part is this: we'll likely know the answer long before the last dollar is spent. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe for more interesting videos. And let us know your thoughts in the comments below.